Hi, healthy humans. Welcome to the Healthy Human Project. I'm Melisa Uchida, your host, and today we are talking about spiritual wellness. And what is spiritual wellness? We know in the Healthy Human Project there are 5 domains for human health: physical health, mental emotional health, spiritual health, energetic health or biofield, and our environmental health. So today we're talking about spiritual health and wellness. Now, as spiritual beings having human experiences, we know that we're souls who have a human body and that the human body is temporary. We're born, and at some point the body starts to age and will die. So we know that those are two definites, birth and death, and all the stuff that happens in between. We're going to take care of our bodies to keep it running for a long time, to keep it living for a long time, and that this material world that we live in is just temporary. Doesn't last. Nothing in this world, in the material world, lasts forever. I always think of Madonna's song, Material Girl. We're living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Sorry to do that to you. Sorry, Madonna, I apologize. But this is so true. We are spiritual beings living in a material world. And when we look at that, we go, this is a material world. This is our 3D world. I can see, taste, smell, touch, feel these things around me. And so because we know that this is a material world, we also know that there is another realm. We know that there's an invisible world. I mean, we know that we use microwaves and infrared rays and satellites and all of these things we can't see, and yet have frequency and have power and have heat and are able to change things. We have thoughts that are invisible. So when we look at this spiritual realm, we go, if I am really a spiritual being living in this material world, what is it that's important to me? It's really easy for us to get focused on the material world. And our values then become about our jobs and our schooling and our education and the kind of car you drive and the neighborhood that you live in, and the jewelry on your wrists or how you look. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in that because that is what we see. And in the world we live in, there is kind of like a judging based on what we see. That's part of it. But what's beautiful about the spiritual realm is that we have to get over what we see with our eyes. I mean, we've all heard that the saying of don't judge a book by its cover. But of course, we buy books or don't buy books sometimes based on what the cover looks like. They've actually shown that. So then how do we live in this world where there is that going on, but also fully honor and respect the spiritual beings that we are? I talk about the circle of comfort quite a bit. Everything that we know is within a circle of comfort. So you can imagine like this big sphere around you, and we try to keep what we know in the sphere because that's what we know, and it feels good because it feels comfortable. When something happens outside of that circle, we usually judge. We usually say, oh, that's wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Or I can't even believe that happened. I can't believe that they did that. It blows my mind that she would have done this. Or I can't believe that he would have done this. Someone has moved outside of the circle of comfort. There's an activity, an event that's beyond our comprehension because it's not something that we would normally think about and normally do. When we add this spiritual component, and it's essential to our health, when we add it into our everyday life, it allows things that go outside of that, rather than judging them, rather than being negative, rather than putting someone else down or saying that they're wrong, it actually allows us to increase our circle of comfort so that suddenly we start to get a little more expansive and go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, that's kind of a new thing for me. Our universe, our world starts to get bigger. Now, this is really important for our worlds to get bigger because The world that we live in, the material world where nothing is permanent, we know everything is changing. Change is the one constant in the material world. Right? We can't depend on anything. We know change is going to be the only thing. Our bodies change. Our homes change, our jobs change, our relationships change, the people around us change, our environment changes. I look at pictures now of, I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. I look at pictures of the beaches when I was growing up and I go, wow, look at that. It's paradise. I mean, some palm trees, some towels on the beach, a couple of people looking for crabs. Now, what is it? Big skyscrapers, hundreds, thousands of people on the beaches, no place to put a towel. Everything is packed, and you go, oh my gosh, so much has changed. There's a place called Hanauma Bay. And when I was a kid, Hanauma Bay, if you're saying it correctly, but I say Hanauma Bay. You walk down this path and it was inside of a crater and the snorkeling there was amazing. I remember going there as a kid. My dad would take me swimming around and we would see eels and all the fish and careful not to step on the sea urchins. I mean, it's one of my favorite memories of my life. Well, I went to Hanauma Bay as an adult and I was so disappointed because as you're walking down the crater, the reef is dying, it's so many people and who are go to the beach with suntan lotion on and sunblock and feeding the fish things you're not supposed to feed them. And we put these chemicals, even the stuff in our hair, all of that stuff is poison for the fish. And so the coral and the fish have been dying. And I was so sad to go, oh my goodness, change is the one thing that is constant in this world. So when we can embrace change is constant, it helps, right, to be able to go, oh yes, there is this big universe, there is this higher power, something I that's so much bigger than we are, we can't even comprehend it. It's so big, we can't even understand God's love. I mean, we can try, but there is nothing here that would be big enough to describe God's love. Like there are no words that we could use to describe it. But it does allow us to keep getting more expansive when we go, oh, that's a lot to grow into. There's so much I don't know about, because it's easy also for us to think we're the experts of whatever it is we think we know. I mean, I remember once one of my kids came home and said, oh, I've got a friend named Dylan, I think maybe something, and couldn't understand that his sister had another friend named Dylan. Well, no, Dylan's in my class. How do you know Dylan? And she's like, there's another Dylan. He's like, I don't understand because Dylan is in my class and this is, my friend. So how could you be friends? Couldn't understand that there could be more than one Dylan. We're all like this. We're all kind of kindergartners in this way going, oh, I didn't understand that there's actually someone else could have a completely different perspective, or someone else could have kind of the same similar experience, but have a different thought about it. I mean, for most of us, it doesn't even occur to us, right? Unless we expand our awareness. So as spiritual beings, that's one of our goals, is to be constantly expanding our awareness, and it allows us to evolve and evolve and evolve and to roll with all of the uncertainty that happens in this material world, because life is like a roller coaster. There are lots of highs and there are lots of lows, and it can be incredibly painful. When we have faith, well, before we get to what being spiritually fit looks like, let's talk about what it looks like to not have a spiritual wellness. So when we don't have a strong connection with a spiritual practice and something higher than ourselves, you can feel it looks like energetically drained, blah, bored, apathetic, not really caring about stuff, maybe hopeless or pessimistic about the future. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really see anything great in the future. Yeah, life is just Groundhog Day, going through the motion every day. It's, yeah, whatever. We might also not be living by any kind of a code of behaviors or a code of ethics. And so when that happens, we're just sort of letting the little me call all the shots. And that can, if you even have if someone has a code of ethics, that can lead to shame and blame or righteousness, defending our wrong behaviors. Or there might not even be a code of ethics, and then it's just kind of like the Wild West. We could feel jealous or resentful of other people. We might be making decisions using only the rational thinking part of our mind and not using the whole self to make our decisions. Sometimes we could wake up dreading the day, not wanting to get out of bed, feeling like, oh, I'm so depressed or so hopeless or anxious that I just don't even want to get out of bed. It might feel like life doesn't have much purpose or meaning, or you're not connected to what your purpose or meaning could be. And we start to look for, we use other things. Like you might hear yourself, and I'm just saying, listen for this in yourself. If you say, oh, I'm going to be happy when, it'll be good when I get this job. That'll be good when I have this relationship. Oh, I'll be so happy when this person comes in, or that I get that car, that promotion, what that looks like. That can be a way to fill a void. And by filling the void, I think of spirituality as being one of the essential puzzle pieces to who we are. So even though we are a soul with this human body and mind for this lifetime, our soul lasts forever. But when we're living in this body, we look at everything from a material point of view, from the human perspective. So I look at this puzzle piece then, and we have these 5 big pieces to the puzzle and then lots of little pieces, but 5 really big ones. And the soul part of it is like right at the heart. So when we don't have our soul self, we're not connected to our soul self, we feel like something is missing. There's a missing piece somewhere. And we try to fill it with shopping, with food, with sex, with relationships, with gambling, with material things, with working, with striving, with prideful things. We're looking to fill a part of us that we're missing. But the thing is, we have that. It's already here. We just aren't connected to it. We just don't see it because we haven't put it in the forefront of our mind. So it's so important that we actually fill ourselves up with this, because otherwise we can spend a lifetime filling ourselves, going from hit to hit to hit to hit of food, sex, drugs, alcohol. And what we're doing is we're giving ourselves dopamine and oxytocin hits. Oh, there's a hit that feels so good. Oh, and oxytocin is the neurotransmitter that females release when they're nursing their children. It's the bonding hormone, the love hormone. You feel so good when you have this oxytocin, because when we're nursing our babies, that builds the connection between mother and child, and it more ensures that that baby is going to be cared for and taken care of, because the mother is really dedicated to it because of this oxytocin. I nursed for a long time for all my kids, and it's one of my absolute, I think I've said this before, one of my absolute favorite parts of my life, that bonding, because I had never felt that before. And to just want to be there with your baby, not doing anything else. That's what oxytocin does. I just want to be here. There's nothing else in the world that I need, just me and my baby right here connecting. That same wholeness is the wholeness that we feel when we feel connected to source or spirit or God, your higher power. So it is really important. There are so many studies that show that faith, that spirituality, that having belief in a higher power boosts our immune system. It makes us more resistant to colds, to COVID. That was some studies have shown that, to cold and flus and diseases. It makes us more resilient to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. So there are many studies. I'll put some of them down in the notes here too, so you can further look into that if you like. Now I want to talk to you about what spiritual wellness looks like. So when spirituality, when our connection with spirit is really an important part of our daily life, this is what it can look like. We have a connection with our highest self, with our soul self. We get to know ourselves. We're way more willing to get to know who we are. We feel like we're living on purpose. Our life has meaning. We wake up in the day, we wake up in the morning excited for the day, feeling inspired, like what am I going to do today? What miracles are going to come my way? How can I be of service today? We have a solid connection, or we're growing the connection. It might not feel solid for a bit, but we're growing the connection with our higher power. And we practice faith, which is believing in something that we can't see, that we don't have proof of. There's something so beautiful in this faith, to believe in something. It is growing this ability to trust. And something I figured out just in my own life is that when we don't trust the people around us, when we don't trust ourselves, it usually started with not trusting caregivers. Of course, when we were young, you might not have had a parent that you could trust. Now, your parents might think they were fully trustworthy. So this doesn't mean that your parents were completely absent or were abusive or anything like that. This has to do with how you were establishing trust, and if your needs were met when you were young, and if they continue to be met as you're developing and throughout adulthood even. Because what happens is we stop trusting ourselves at some point when we don't trust our caregivers, and then we don't make the good decisions to be able to rely on ourselves, and there's a breakdown of trust. When that happens, we don't feel safe. And something that growing your belief with your higher power grows trust, and it grows the feeling of safety. So all of a sudden, in this uncertain world where we have the highs and we have the lows, I mean, we're basically surfing, or like, on a roller coaster. I like surfing better. I like, or being on a boat where you're really in the high seas, up and down, up and down. We are still able to trust. That is huge. That means we can still feel safe even when the world is unpredictable, even when stuff is hitting the fan and you don't know how it's going to turn out. That there is still a feeling of safety, like I know everything is going to be okay. That is worth everything in life. That gives us almost a superpower to be able to, for resilience, to be able to make it through life's uncertain times without, and by thriving, not just surviving. So it doesn't mean to be alive and to make it through some crap and still be here, but to be angry, bitter, resentful, not very connected with other people. That's not what I mean. When I say resilient, I'm talking about someone who's been through really hard stuff, because we all have been through hard stuff, but been through hard stuff, and then you still make it out, and you are full of love and forgiveness and joy and inspiration and wanting to make a difference, wanting to just be a good person and to live a good life. It doesn't have to be on any big scale, just wanting to live a good life and smiling and appreciating this life that we have, because it really is pretty short at the end of the day. Okay, so it allows us to get through all of these obstacles and these challenges that we know life is going to bring, because that is the nature of life. And we get through them without blaming other people, without judging other people, because those are the normals, right? So with most people, they're going to blame, they're going to judge, they're going to be righteous, they're going to criticize, complain. But as healthy humans, we are rising above that. We want to live our best lives for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for our country, for the world, for our connection with the divine, for to be our best selves. So that we can't be blaming and criticizing and complaining and judging and if we're going to do that. So It's rising above all of that. It allows us to embrace life's ups and downs. And also, it helps us to feel connected to the other people. There are plenty of people on the planet that you might not like, that you might not get along with, and that you disagree with. And that's because we each have our unique perspective of how we experience life. It's very tuned to us at this time based on all of our experiences that we've had throughout our lives, based on our beliefs, based on our priorities, based on our awareness, and based on our vision of the future. So when we look at what is it that I want to get out of this life, where is it that I'm going, we can rise above all of the yucky. I think of it as the little me's. We're all the little me's down here going, me, look at me, you're so terrible, and he's so terrible, and all this fighting and this bickering comes down here, and we get to rise up above it and look down and go, it's not really looking down, but when we do get an overall perspective of things, we can almost look down and go, oh, okay, in the same way that we might take care of our kids, like, oh, I see that's some spilled milk. Okay, well, let's clean it up. Rather than, I can't believe you spilled the milk. How could you spill the milk? Now, I have been there. Not really with spilled milk, but about other things I've done that. Like, I can't believe this. And then going, yeah, you know what? That's not important. At the end of the day, it's not important. At the end of the day, it's important that my kid know he can make mistakes. They can make mistakes, and they can then they can make mistakes and learn from them and do better the next time and really figure out how to pour milk without spilling it or something. You know what I mean? Okay. Then we also have being honest. Being honest in all ways and doing what is right even when no one is looking. So being honest in all ways, this is such a hard one, and faith is really helpful for this, because when we live life in just the material world, we don't want to be honest. I want to cover, I want to only show the part of me that I want you to see, and I don't have to worry about being honest all of the time, because you only see the material world. So when we see out the material world, we expect others only to see in the same plane. But when we are spiritually healthy, we have spiritual wellness or spiritual fitness, then we get to say, oh, well, I didn't look at it that way. Let me see, how can I be better? And we want to be better. So we really start to almost invite in, what about myself am I not seeing? Is there a part of me that I need to grow? Is there a part of me that I need to shed? Am I holding on to something that it's time to let go of? Or do I have a belief system or a value system that might be off? It allows us to see those parts of ourselves, and we wouldn't be able to otherwise unless we have a higher power, unless we have a faith that there is a much bigger picture than just this material world. Then we devote time for self-reflection. So there has to be a dedicated time. I was, journaling is great. It could be journaling, it could be reading scripture, it could be reading any spiritual books that give you inspiration and that help you to be a better person. That might be a fun one, just to share a bunch of books that are your spiritual books that give you inspiration. I would love that. If you want to put them in the chat, that would be, and if the chat's not on, I will figure out how to turn it on. I'm just learning all of this stuff. So, but I would love to know, what are your go-to spiritual books that help you to be your best self and that help you thrive? Then there's also scheduling time for prayer, meditation, being in nature. These are all going to help connect you with Source. Singing spiritual songs, listening to music that raises your vibration. Singing is great. Singing, humming, that really helps. Doing art. Where did I hear that? Someone said doing art is like being with God. And it's true, because you lose track of time. You are in that flow state that's just where time stands still. For me, yoga practice is also that. Art is like that. And so it's beautiful. Running or swimming could also, being in the ocean could also be like that. Feeling connected to other people and to our planet. and doing your best to live according to a value system. This doesn't mean, of course, being perfect, because we do make mistakes and we have to give ourselves permission to make mistakes. That's how we learn. And like everything, you have the light and the dark, and you put them together, and that's how we notice where the contrast is. So everything that we know we don't like, it just takes us closer to knowing what it is that we do like. Everything that we don't want, sorry about the elephant upstairs, to my kids running around, but everything that we don't want just helps us to get more clear about what it is that we do want. So we welcome all of those experiences, and that we're starting to build this relationship with ourself where we trust ourselves to do the right thing. Now, this takes a really long time, the self-trust. So look at it as a process. And if you're at the beginning of this self-trust, trusting source, connecting with a higher power journey, give yourself a lot of permission to go, oh yeah, I trust myself right now. And then, oh no, I don't, I blew. And then you're building back trust again. And oh, you didn't. Brene Brown has this great analogy she uses with the marble jar when she was talking to her daughter. You build trust for everything a friend does that builds trust, lets you know that they're there for you, they're going to support you, they've got your back, they do the right thing. You put a marble in the jar, and then when a friend loses trust, and that might be they forget a birthday, or they are late to something, or they go do something without you, or you feel left out somehow, whatever it is, you take a marble out. So you're looking at the whole jar of marbles as a whole. Is there trust in there, or is there not trust in there? We can do the exact same things with ourselves. Okay, so here's a jar, 2 jars. And every time you go, hey, good job, I said I was going to do it and I did it, you put a marble in the jar, self-trust. And then every time that you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, or sometimes we say we're going to do something and we already know we're not going to do it. Sometimes we say yes, but we really want to say no. And you say yes because you're just trying to appease someone, or you want them to like you, or you're just kind of going with it. But you really know. I used to do this all the time because I was such a people pleaser and such a social person. And I had so many things going on and so many interests and so many things I wanted to do that I would book myself too fast, a double book. And I was supposed to be in 2, sometimes 3 places at one time, knowing then that I couldn't possibly do that. So I would feel badly. I would get all stressed out trying to make it work. I was losing trust with myself all of the time until I realized trust is absolutely essential for my feeling of safety, for my feeling of wholeness, and for my own health. So I have to be able to start to trust myself. And once I had this strong connection with my higher power, and when, I that didn't come until after my husband died, and I started asking, well, yeah, what happens? What happens when we die? What is this life about, and what is death about? And I didn't have any close experiences with death up until that point. So my husband dies. I have what I came to later know to be a near-death experience, or a spiritual experience that was similar to a near-death experience. And then you start to go, oh, okay, well, there is more than just this life, because I can leave my body and I can come back into my body. And I know that. So there's more. There's this whole, it's so much bigger. When we give ourselves permission to, even if it's dipping your toes into this invisible realm, just to know that there's more than just this. It provides us with this freedom to live this life fearlessly, or as close to fearlessly as possible. So I used to be a super scaredy cat. I could project confidence at times, but I was super scared of being abandoned, being rejected, of being unwanted, of being not liked. And it was to the point that it was pretty paralyzing. After my husband died, and after my near-death experience, about almost a year after, I said, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to live in fear. And at that point, I had a strong connection with spirit, and it's been increasing ever since. And I'm very dedicated and loyal to my spiritual practice. And And it gives me this energy and this joy and this inspiration and a courage that I couldn't have ever had before. So when we can connect with this highest part of ourselves, our lives change. That's why spirituality is an essential element in our model of health in the Healthy Human Project, because without it, there's an emptiness. There is a piece missing, and we need to be able to fill that piece, not with stuff in the material world, not with these temporary things that are like putting band-aids on it, but to be able to fill it with what really is already there, which is the soul, which is source. Okay. We have a relationship with our bodies. We know that we are not our bodies. My identity is not my body. My identity is not my name. My identity is, now it becomes much bigger. So it gives me a lot of freedom. I don't have to be so tied up in what it looks like or what it weighs or how it, we want it to function well, right? We want to be able to function. We take care of our body in the same way that we would take care of our cars. We get regular oil changes, we put gasoline in it, we make sure it has windshield wipers, you get tune-ups, all of those things we want to be doing with our bodies. So we want to make sure we get good sleep. I've noticed that is a big one too. So especially if you're feeling like spiritually not like you have spiritual wellness, but more like you're in dis-ease, and that's D-I-S, like capital D-I-S hyphen E-A-S-E. So not a disease, but a spiritual dis-ease. There's just something, right? And you don't know what it is. A lot of times, a lack of sleep, a lack of proper nutrition, those things can make you feel like, you just feel kind of blah. So I would start there with making sure you have enough sleep and enough hydration and enough nutrition. There's this beautiful thing that comes with faith and the spiritual practice, which is knowing that you're never alone. That again is one of the most amazing. It is like a miracle, because what happens when you know you're never alone is all of those highs and lows, the pain of the lows and the suffering of the lows, the hardships that come, the fear of all the uncertain things that happen in life, the heartbreaks, the things changing, people leaving, jobs, careers, everything changing, pets die, spouses die, children die, parents die. It's Lucy. So when we know we're never alone, it's almost like an antiseptic to the suffering and the pain that comes with human life. Because loneliness, when we feel like we're all alone, that leads to hopelessness. And hopelessness leads to giving up. And it's heaviness. It's easy to sink into the quicksand. But when we know we're never alone, you know that Source is always with you. Spirit is always with you. And whether this is Jesus or angels or guides, there is beauty in knowing that you are never alone, or Allah, or whatever your practices are. I'm not going to get into like, there's no wrong here. Okay. Okay. So those are the benefits. That's what spiritual health looks like. So just look at the list of spiritual disease, not having spiritual health, and see if any of those resonate. Because often we think that, it must be something physical. It must be, we go to the doctor. It must be something. I'm going to go have a Starbucks, or I'm going to drink an energy drink to give me more energy. I'm going to, again, we try to fill it with material stuff on the outside, but it's something that's already here. So just experiment with it. Go, all right. So what do we need? Think of this as your recipe. We need a belief or a willingness to believe in a higher power. Okay? And then this might include, for some people also, if you don't have a higher power that you believe in, you might start to just take a little time and think about, what are the qualities in a higher power that bring out the best in me? So I have this belief in God, and what what is my God? Is this the God from the Bible? Is this the God from the Torah? What kind of a God am I looking for that brings out the best in me? And what we don't want is a punishing, someone who's going to bring shame. I mean, shame is the lowest vibration possible. So we don't want shame. We don't want blame. We don't want guilt. You want inspiring, something that's going to lift you up, that makes you feel really good. Then we also need a schedule of connecting. So having something weekly that's big, a bigger time, a bigger amount of time, church or a meeting or a Bible study or a group or a song group or something, prayer group, whatever. Maybe it's getting together with a group of other fellow like-minded spiritual people and practicing or getting together. And then having a daily practice, something that's small. Designated space for your worship. And this could be an altar. It just what you want a place that can be small with little things that help to inspire you and where you feel connected to the divine. And a willingness to surrender the small stuff. Oh my gosh, this is so big. The willingness, this is a beautiful gift that we get with our faith. Willingness to surrender all the small stuff that at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. Ask yourself, in 5 years, is this going to make any difference? And the reality is probably not. Right? So just surrendering it. Okay, now our directions. So those are the ingredients. Their directions are going to be to create a daily ritual, connect with spirit, and to schedule it next to something that's already established, like brushing your teeth or having dinner or your lunch break, something like that, so that it goes hand in hand with something that's already established. That's going to make it much easier to continue this ritual until it becomes a habit. Okay, setting up your designated space. Again, that's your altar. That can be, you can put pictures of. So on your altar or in your space, you might have little things that represent God or that represent your angels or that remind you of something. It could be pictures of loved ones that have passed, whatever it is, flowers, things that are in your space that you will use for worship. So anything that's going to help you to feel connected to God. So what can your routine look like, your daily ritual look like? It might look like waking up in the morning, having some tea, sitting down next to the altar, a couple minutes of meditation, writing in a journal. I love to ask, what is it that you want me to know today for my highest good and for the highest good of all? Or what is it that I need to know today for my highest good and for the highest good of all? It could include setting an intention for your day, and your intention might be something like, today I intend to increase my connection with the divine. Today, I would like to get to know my highest self more. Today, I would like to live in service to something higher than myself. So that's just some of the things. Doing something small and consistently is way better than doing something big but inconsistently. So it's way better to have a small daily spiritual practice of 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes at night, but you do it consistently rather than once a year you go on a spiritual retreat. We want our spiritual practices, our spirituality, our relationship with the divine to be a part of daily life, to be ingrained in us, for it to be at the forefront of our minds rather than at the back of our minds, because that's what it's like living in a material world. We tend to put the material things right here, front and center, and the spiritual practices or our spiritual beliefs back there. But actually, we need to flip-flop it, where our spiritual beliefs are up here, front and center, and the material world, we go, oh yeah, but the material, all of that is temporary. So that really is not important because that's the temporary stuff. But this, am I living according to my values? Am I doing what I feel compelled to do? Am I behaving in a way that I am proud about, that I can take ownership of, and that I want to be honest about? Is that because all of that is building, again, the feeling of trust, it's building the feeling of safety, and that's building our wholeness. So the whole human health, that's what we want, because that is a good life. Doesn't have to be big and fancy. Small, daily, consistent actions done over a long period of time. That's what's going to increase our health for this, okay? So if you're opening yourself up to the spirit side of you, to your soul self, let this be a time that you look forward to. Let it be a time that you get excited about. You don't want to dread it. Oh my gosh, I've got to go pray. Oh, whoa, what a bummer, right? We want it to be like this is a super special time. With my son and we turned our nightly gratitude practice. We used to say 3 things we were grateful for at the end of the night. We turned that into prayers, thanking our angels and guides for all of the blessings that we have in our lives. And I love our prayer time. Then we also do a walk every evening where we walk Lucy and we sit outside, we look at the stars and we just talk. Sometimes we make wishes on the stars. Sometimes we talk to his dad who's in heaven. And sometimes we just admire the awesomeness of the universe and go, oh my gosh, I wonder how far that is. Like, wonder what star that is or what planet that is, and what temperature do you think it is there, and what, what colors do they have there? So it gives us permission to be small. And when we feel like, oh yeah, we're small, then instead of us being the center of our universe, which is normally how we see life, is we're the center of our own universes, instead of that, we get to be a part of a universe that's so much bigger than us. And that is cool. That feels good, to be part of something that is so big and so miraculous. Oh, it's just amazing. Okay, so when I am feeling disconnected, I know it pretty quickly now because I start to feel like I'm in a funk. My face changes, my energy changes. I go from my normal kind of upbeat to I'm less patient. I I care less for sure. I'm more apathetic. I'm more short. So now when I get that way, I go, oh, it took me a little bit, but I'm not connected to spirit. That's what's going on. So then I go and I sit. I'll usually sit outside. But if not, sometimes like now it's, 100 degrees out there. I sit inside. I slow my breath down and I focus on my breath until my breath is really slow. I listen for the pauses, the holding of the breath after the inhale and after the exhale. And those, when they get long, and that you're holding your breath and it just feels almost like you're floating. Like you're leaving your body. You're rising up above this material body. And that's when I know I'm connected to source. When you hit that really slow breaths and the pauses are long and it's almost you feel like you're in the clouds. So that's when I feel good. I feel whole. I know at that moment that I am connected with the divine, and it is amazing. You might have a piece of jewelry or something that when you wear, it also sparks, or you have it, it also sparks your connection with spirit. So I got this necklace. It is lapis. It's actually a man's bracelet, and I wear it as a choker. It has these 2 wolves as the clasp. So I wear it with the clasps on the front. And when I wear it, I remind myself of this American Indian story about a grandfather and his grandson. And I'm sure you've heard it, but I'll tell it to you anyway. So there's I believe it's a Cherokee parable, been passed down through generations, of a grandfather speaking with his grandson. And he says, there are 2 wolves fighting inside of me, and they're fighting to the death. And one is full of self-doubt, hatred, anger, fear, jealousy, resentment, separation. The other is full of love and compassion, benevolence, empathy, encouragement, faith. This is a fight to the death, and this fight is happening inside me, inside you, and inside every single person. Well, which one wins? The boy says. My grandfather says, the one you feed. It sounds like such a simple story, and yet I can't tell you how many times I've been wearing this necklace, and I have to remind myself, which wolf am I feeding? It is a choice. We always have the choice of choosing the material world, of always saying, this is all I believe in because this is what I see and this is what I experience. And I'll tell you, if you give yourself time to be quiet, give yourself time to remove yourself from all of the dazzly stuff of the material world, from all of the problems of the material world and the drama of the material world, and you give yourself some time to sit in silence, to focus on your breath and to rise above it, there is so much beauty. There is so much wholeness. It is like a drug that I've never done before. And I was a partier for a really long time. It's a feeling of completeness that I believe I've been searching for my whole life. And we get that through our connection with spirit. Isn't that cool? You don't have to go out and find it anywhere. It's all right here within us. It's here already. Yeah. So I thought that was a great story. We see this in all religions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Prince Arjuna is a warrior prince. He has this battle of the two wolves within him on the battlefield. He breaks down. He says, I can't make a decision. I don't know. I'm choosing between two wrongs. Nothing feels right. I don't know what to do. Have you had that where you're like, I don't know what to do? I've done that a lot. I don't know what to do. You have to make a choice. Which one is my highest path? Which one is the path I'm supposed to go on? Well, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's best friend transforms into an avatar of God and reminds him, this body is temporary. This here that you're going through, the drama of your life right here is Arjuna, is temporary. So just like you're going to get rid of your clothes when they get old and run out, you'll have to ditch them and get a new set of clothes. The same thing happens with our bodies. Our bodies are temporary. So we don't want to make our big decisions based on this temporary body because this is so temporary. And ladies, because I know we do this, we lose weight and go shopping. And it's like, oh my gosh, I lost 10 pounds. I'm going to go buy all these clothes. I'm going to do whatever. And then what do we do with the fat clothes? We put them, sometimes they stay up in the closet, which is never the right thing to do because then you're looking at them and it's like forcing yourself to look at something that gives you some kind of guilt or shame, or actually the fat clothes you can leave in there because you're like, yeah, but we keep them because we know sometimes we're going to go back to it. And the same thing goes the other way though. The skinny clothes, when we gain weight, then we go, oh, I'm going to keep the skinny clothes here. Now, if we keep them hanging up in the closet, then going to feel like, oh, well, it's kind of a, gosh, I compare it to when I was going through IVF and I was constantly checking my mucus to see if I was ovulating constantly. Like, am I ovulating? Am I ovulating? Am I ovulating? And it got, my husband really wanted a baby. And it got to be so to the point that every time I went to the bathroom, it was kind of like, I'm such a loser. Every time I went to the bathroom, I felt I got more down on myself. I got more down on my body and it was more doubt, more doubt, more doubt, more feeling bad. That is what we don't want. That's the temporary nature of the human existence. We don't want to base our big decisions on something that is so temporary, like what size we're wearing, or I won't go into any more ovulation stuff. Thanks. Anyway, in the Bible also, lots of stories about doubt, because we doubt, starting with Adam and Eve, right? The very first doubters, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, even John the Baptist, all doubters, and there are so many more, but the doubt, this questioning our faith is completely natural, normal, and there's nothing wrong with it. So long as we know, okay, I'm questioning it. What's coming out of it? And am I still willing to believe in something that you don't have any proof of? Am I still willing to put my faith into something that it's putting it out there into the unknown? And some days we might choose one wolf and other days we'll choose the other wolf. What's important is that we as healthy humans, look at what's the effect it has on my life. If I choose a life focused on this material world, what does that look like for me? What's the quality of my life? What are my values? What are my friendships like? What is my day like? Am I enjoying that life? Does that bring out the best in me and the people around me? If I choose a life of faith based on something that we can't see and can't prove probably in our lifetimes, maybe ever, what effect does that have on my life? Well, the studies show that we live longer, we can better resist diseases, sicknesses, and illnesses. I mean, I had a year where I was really sick. I was up and down, up and down, up and down. I seem to have caught every single cold and virus that was coming around. It says something. And then we have times where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not getting sick because, and I'm not saying don't wear a mask if you have a compromised immune system or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that it is powerful. We live longer. Our quality of life is better. We have more enjoyment. We look for miracles rather than looking for what's wrong. That's another beautiful thing. We look for the cool things that are, you can't explain. They're only miraculous. You look for the good in life rather than looking for what you can complain about. I'll say looking for what I can complain about. That's a huge difference. It changes everything right there, amping up our quality of life. Okay, fun fact. Dragonflies are one of the first insects on the planet. They have been around for 300 million years, right? Amazing. They have two sets of wings on the thorax, and those four wings can work independently of each other, which makes dragonflies really amazing hunters. They hunt with a 97% accuracy of what they're going for. And because the four wings work independently of each other, they can go forward, backwards, right, left, up, down, and they can stay in one place for up to 60 seconds. For insects, they live a long time, about 6.5 years, and most of those years are spent in the nymph stage underwater. So when we see the dragonfly, they've already been alive for a really long time, but in a completely different form. You wouldn't even recognize the baby dragonfly, which has been through several of those nymph stages. All right, I'm Melisa Uchida. Thank you so much for being here, for watching the Healthy Human Project, and for being here. If you like the show, please subscribe, make a comment. I would love to know what you like, what you don't like. I'm open to all of it. I really want this to be about for you, for the health of you and your family, and for you to thrive. We are a group of people that are not just going to survive, we are thriving regardless of all of life's uncertainties. We take them by the horns, we ride them, we embrace them, and we're better people for it, and our families are better people for it. All right, thanks so much, and until I see you next time, love and light.